Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Roseville Wrecking Ball. The Roseville Wrecking Ball.
Joshua Shrum. He is a very talented steward, very knowledgeable.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball. This is one of those podcasts where I listen to every episode. I love what he's putting out there.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball. Josh Shrum.
Parcels of Knowledge. Does a fantastic job with that podcast.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball. He is an Article 8 scholar, and thank God. We need Article 8 scholars right now.
Tune into the Parcels of Knowledge podcast while you're on the route. That's the mailman's playbook, brother.
All right. Good morning and welcome back to Parcels of Knowledge, the podcast dedicated to delivering knowledge to the city letter carrier with your host, the Roseville Wrecking Ball. Today we have a special guest. We have a lot of investigative interviews here, and today it's especially one that I think is really cool, and I think you'll like him as well. So would you be able to introduce yourself for the record, please?
Yeah, my name is Greg Rowe. I'm a letter carrier from Cortland, New York.
Okay. And, so Greg Rowe, would you let everyone know about your new podcast?
So I got a podcast about arbitration. I call it the Key Cases Podcast because it was a good place for me to start talking about different awards. I kind of got the idea when I was working on a project national to update the MRS. We started out by going through all the key cases and trying to decide ones that hadn't been reviewed before. Prior to the current version of the MRS, which is online, an HTML version, it has only national decisions in it and national step forward decisions. There used to be a version of it that had regional arbitrations in it. And they started a project at National to review all the new arbitration awards we've gotten since 2011 and see if they could be added back into the MRS. And I was helping with that project a couple of years ago, and they kind of gave me the idea for this podcast.
Honestly, that's something I love. I think that's a fantastic idea. Oops. I think that it's very original. It's very awesome. And would you let everyone know, as I imagine, I think you're an arbitration advocate. Am I correct?
Yeah, I'm the steward of my office. I'm the treasurer of my local branch. I started doing Formal A's after a couple of years after I became a steward. Kind of, like a lot of guys did, same kind of development. And then I started doing arbitration, and I just really took to it. It's my favorite thing to do. I always tell people it's the best thing you can do in the union is be an arbitration advocate. It's just good work. I don't know. I enjoy it a lot.
Honestly, that's always been my goal in my last union and in this one. And I don't know if I'll ever get there, to be honest, because sometimes I make the wrong people a little bit upset. But as I heard, I think you got phenomenal amount of cases under your belt in a short period of time. Is that correct?
I've done about 100. I think I got about 100 different arbitration awards since I started doing it. It's a decent. There are people that have done more, but I'm a full-time. I'm still a full-time letter carrier. I carry mail most days. I think it's a pretty good pace for someone that does carry mail every day.
Absolutely. I was impressed when I heard that. And everyone, just to let you know, you can hear this on their podcast. Where is that podcast available?
According to my feed, it's available everywhere on Spotify and Apple feed and all that other stuff. I use a hosting service called rss.com, but they tell me that it's everywhere. But
Yep.
We'll see.
Well, yeah, I'm familiar with RSS. So if everyone wants to know, the Key Cases podcast can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon, and a few other places. Like typically they would post to Podbean, but all major podcast outlets, I would imagine, has those podcasts. The Key Cases is what you got to look for, by Greg Rowe, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So Can you tell us what your favorite key case is? Do you got one that you like in particular?
I usually it's the last one I read, right? I mean, I love reading arbitration decisions. I like reading arbitration awards. I like to think about them, and this is just an opportunity for me to talk about, what arbitration awards really, what the arbitrator was doing, and how they did it, right? How did they get from either to a violation or no violation? Did they cover the things that we'd like to see as a steward or an advocate? Or did they mention the parts of the contract that were relevant? Do they talk about how they were violated? Things like that. So
Okay, so you're trying to get people familiar with the union's position, management's position, and the arbitrator's position. Am I correct?
yeah, in a way, I'm trying to really, I'm more than anything else thinking about how the arbitrator does their work. Obviously, you can see sometimes you can see how the advocate did their work. Sometimes you can even see what the steward did, and I like to comment on those things. If they see good steward work or good advocacy, sometimes it comes through. But arbitration decisions are written by the arbitrator, and they put in there what they want. They say what they want. They include the facts that they want, and so it's their story. So it's really about them in a lot of ways.
At some point, are you ever going to make, and maybe you have already, because I know you got multiple episodes out there. I only got to a few, but I really like what I hear. At some point, are you going to articulate your familiarity with certain arbitrators and how they operate? Like, for example, if
I,
they have
you
certain
know,
quirks.
I thought about that a lot, because I've worked with a lot of different arbitrators, and you do get to know them pretty well. I always tell people that arbitrators have colleagues; those are other arbitrators, but their coworkers are really the advocates that they see because those are the people they know. A lot of arbitrators don't know a lot of other arbitrators, but they do know a lot of advocates. So that when they get to meet us, we do get to know them pretty well sometimes. So I do have favorite arbitrators and stuff.
Really?
And some that I don't like as much, but I don't wanna talk too much
Okay.
about their personalities typically because I wanna keep doing cases.
Yep.
Um,
That makes sense.
and so mostly I wanna talk about whether or not I feel like they did what we're looking for, which is to tell us, how they made the decision and why.
Okay. Now, I think I'm going to ask you that when we're not going to be done with, but I just have one thing to ask you before we pretty much wrap this up. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, obviously my goal is to be educational. I feel like the union and union members have educated me. The membership sent me to, formally and beyond an arbitration advocate school, a leadership academy, give me opportunity. They pay for me, they pay my wages when I'm doing this kind of work. And I really appreciate that. I want to make sure that I can pass some of that along so that other people can hopefully get the same kind of education that I did. I think it's important. It's an important part of being a branch leader is making sure that you educate people coming up behind you. So that's kind of part of my goal as well.
And I couldn't say anything more true. And before I let you go, I just want to let the listeners know that if you don't know Greg Rowe, he is a fantastic individual. He's a genius in terms of the contract. If you go on the Aid Arbitration Discord, you'll see many, many words of wisdom that he leaves. He's a very good at contributing back his knowledge. Many people have learned from him. So, if you into the knowledge for the contract and you want to learn about arbitration cases, I think his podcast will be absolutely fantastic for you to check out. I understand it's not going to be for everyone, but as I understand, I do believe my listeners are very particular. They're listening for a reason. It's because they're interested in contract rights, and I think that Greg Rose podcast, the key cases that can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other avenues that are the main avenues. I think you should check it out. I think everybody should check it out at least once. And if you like what you see, go ahead and subscribe. It was good having you on, Greg.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it.
And you too. Have a good day.
You too.
If these these guys are getting educated, we will be in big trouble.
Management's been weighing you down like a bag of wet catalogs, but you don't gotta take it. You strap on the elbow of education, dig it?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Roseville Wrecking Ball. The Roseville Wrecking Ball.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball. He is an Article 8 scholar, and thank God. We need Article 8 scholars right now. The grievous genius, the Roseville Wrecking Ball, doing amazing work.
Tune into the Parcels of Knowledge podcast while you're on the route. That's the mailman's playbook, brother.